Good morning, everybody. This is Tim with Right Rudder Marketing. Thank you for joining us today. We are here live at the Right Rudder Marketing podcast, and today we have a very special guest. I met him a couple of years ago. Maybe I'll save the intro for himself to do it, but this is Brandon Martini. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Tim. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know we met, I guess it's been 2-3 years now already. It's been quite a while. I can't believe it's taken us so long to do something like this, but thanks again for having me. Like you're saying, I'm Brandon Martini. I'm the COO and co-founder of Stratus Financial. We're the largest student loan lender for pilots in the space. I also have a podcast called Aviation Mentors Podcast. We've been doing it for, I can't believe it, but I think it's been like 2 or 2.5 years now. And it's been an absolute blast to create and kind of meet fellow entrepreneurs and fellow aviators. So yeah, it's been a fun time.
Been great. So you're pretty well known in the industry with Stratus Financial, but there's some stuff you did before that, I think, right? So you were a flight school owner, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So my background, I actually calculated the other day. I think I've been a pilot for a little over 11 years now, or at least I started flying about 11 years ago. I don't know if I was technically a pilot yet, but yeah, I started flying in late 2013, early 2014. I have to go back in 3 different logbooks to go find that out. But I've got, I think 22 or 2,300 hours now. I don't count as much as I used to until once I got 1,500, it was kind of like loosey-goosey. I was like, I just got to qualify for this ATP thing at some point. And I haven't really been logging as much as I should. I do it for proficiency and currency, and that's really about it. But yeah, so I started out flying then. I got my private. And then what does everybody do? Of course, when they can't afford to fly anymore because you've got a young child at home, you go borrow money and buy an airplane, like any sane person does. So I bought my first airplane, and it was a 1980 Cessna 172, and it was beautiful. And I owned it up till a couple of years ago. I'll tell you how I sold it, but I love that airplane. It was November 7320 Juliet. It's a red and white 172 and half-time motors, and I got it, believe it or not, in 2016 for $35,000.
Yeah, I think you're going to talk to a lot of people with prices, and they're going to throw like their fists in the air, like,
I'm throwing my fist in the air for not buying like 50 of them back then.
Yeah, exactly. When I started doing the private thing, I was looking at, I was renting, and I still rent, and we're looking at purchasing an aircraft after the private. I'm like, it's only 50K, 70K. It's not bad. I can do this, Now they're over like 150, 200, depending on, what you're looking at. I mean, now they're telling us now you just buy a brand new one, because by the time you actually get it, it's already going to increase in value by 100K or something like that. So, I mean,
I've heard that same thing.
That's true or not. So 11 years ago, you started flying, 10 years ago. I guess what got you in there? So like, what were you doing before that, and why the switch to aviation?
Yeah, so I was an insurance adjuster. I wrote estimates on cars in South Los Angeles area, and I did that for a long time. I looked at over 12,000 vehicles in my career. I did that for a decade, and my dad did it. My grandfather was in the body shop business, so it was kind of like, oh, I grew up with this. I knew it. So, but I always had this inclination when I was in high school. I was like, I want to go fly a fighter jet. I want to go fly upside down. I want to go be a Blue Angel. Like, doesn't that sound fun? It does, at least to me. And this was kind of right after 9/11, after we were going into Iraq, I believe. And they didn't want to hire pilots, or at least I didn't know the recruiters to talk to. So when I applied, I said I wanted to become a pilot, and they were like, no, we're going to put you on the ground for at least 8 years, and then you can apply to become a pilot. That wasn't for me. I didn't want to shoot at people. So I was okay dropping the bomb, but I wasn't okay shooting at people. So I decided against it. And I respect the hell out of our military, by the way. Thank you for your service if you're listening to us. But it just wasn't for me. So I gave up on that dream. I didn't realize that you can actually go to a flight school. And that's why I think what's amazing about Right Rudder Marketing is you're going after these students that have no idea that this could be a path for them. Because for me, it wasn't even on my radar. I did not. Oh, by the way, the radar, see that? More aviation puns. We can all day long. But I didn't realize that you can even become a pilot unless you went to the military, because that's all you hear is you got to go to the military, you got to go to the military. And finally I found out there was a local flight school. So I told everybody at Christmas time, hey, I just want flight lessons for Christmas. So I got those flight lessons for Christmas, and 6 months later, I was a private pilot. And then I bought that airplane I told you about, and I was like, well, I can't afford this unless I do something with it. So I'm going to try renting it out. Well, renting it out turned into flight lessons, turned into me renting a closet office space at Romeo Alpha Lima Riverside Airport. And then I built that up from 1 aircraft to 14 aircraft and bootstrapped it all the way to 2 locations, 2 separate Part 141 certificates. And today I've got commercial pilot, land and sea for multi and single, and I've got all my CFI ratings, and I love helping pilots and teaching people. So that's kind of how the Aviation Mentors podcast started too. In July of 23, I ended up selling my flight schools to focus solely on Stratus Financial and some of my passion projects like Aviation Mentors. And here I am today. And that's the reason why we're talking, because I switched all those. Actually, the reason why we're talking is all because I decided not to go to the military and go work for 10 years and look up at the sky and like, oh, there's a cool airplane. I wish I could do that.
Yeah. I think when I was started in aviation, I thought airlines and military. So I crossed 33 or 32, 30. I forgot what the deadline was, but I was always considering it right until the deadline. And I think I've already crossed it now. But like for the longest time, I was also considering the military route too. And I'm like, well, that's kind of how to become a pilot. That's what I grew up with, like fighter jets and stuff like that. When I was thinking about it, like, can I join the military to do this? The other alternative was the airlines. And I was kind of, for me, my previous experience was not in aviation. I was in manufacturing for a whole decade, started from the bottom, went to the top, becoming a manager, director, and all that stuff. And then when I got there, I was like, I don't really like, doing this stuff, and it's become a pilot. So then I started looking at the airlines, and I'm like, but back before, I think before COVID, it was pretty rough. I mean, like, regional airline pilot, you're going to do all your training, spend 50 to 100 grand on training, and then you're going to get paid, peanuts. Like, I think at that time, before 2020, before COVID, I believe this regional airline salary was like, after all your stuff, it's like around less than 50K. I think it was like 30, 40, actually, if I remember this right.
In 2017 and 2018, I remember being 35,000 because I was trying to do it.
That's times have sure changed now, though. So I mean, that's a lot of opportunity it's good times to do it. It's a lot of good opportunities, and there's a lot of students that also listen to this every once in a while. Obviously, I think our main audience is flight schools and aviation business owners, but every once in a while we'll get some prospective students that are looking into the industry and they want to know, and like times have changed so much, and it's for the benefit really to start your training right away, start your get your hours in. There's never the best time to enter aviation, I think, because like right now they're like, oh, the airlines are slowing down, right? I mean, compared to 2 years ago, I think if you had 2 legs and some eyes, you might be able to in 1,500 hours, you might just direct entry, whatever. But still, you never know what's gonna happen next, right? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Boeing puts out a 10-year report every year, and it's really a 20-year report. I don't know why they call it their 10-year report, but it's a pilot and technician outlook. And I show that to everybody who's thinking about becoming a pilot. It just shows where the demand is going, nationally and internationally, for you to become a pilot. And it's mind-blowing how many pilots we need to create and hire every year. And that doesn't count all the ones, well, it might count, I haven't really looked deep into their stats, but all the pilots that are forcibly retired at 65 years old from the airlines. You need to refill those slots, and it's coming over and over again. And I know COVID exacerbated the issue, which turned into what you were talking about, those 2 years, right, post-COVID of massive hiring as soon as you can get past the sim training blockage, right? And yeah, we had to train more and more pilots, but still today, if we look at hiring trends from now to 10, 12 years ago, they are still way higher than they were 10 or 12 years ago. We're hearing that it has slowed down, but it hasn't really slowed down. It's only slowed down in the fact that it's not as fast as it was 2 years ago, but it's still amazing for the history of aviation. I mean, now is the time to become a pilot.
Definitely. So let's talk about, some of your roots. So you started the flight school, you got your private, and then after that you started running it out, then it kind of evolved into this, 14 plane operations. So, a lot of us that listen to this thing are flight school owners or CFIs. I guess talk about the journey of how you brought your flight school from 1 plane to 14 planes and eventually selling it and then moving on to different business ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off with that one aircraft, and I actually borrowed money from three different people, like 15 grand from three different people. So I would have some reserves because I had no money. I was just broke. I had a new kid at home and I just didn't have any cash. So I was like, man, I just spent 10 grand on, or 12. Actually, I think I got it done at 8, believe it or not, in 2014. I got it done at like 42 hours. I was really lucky. And luckily I was good stick, but terrible at the test. 71%.
Ooh.
You get it. Yeah, it's horrible. And I did that on every written, by the way, except for when I used Shepherd Air. But yeah, so I had that one aircraft. I decided I would partner up with a CFI friend of mine, and we rented a closet at Riverside Airport for $96 a month. And I converted this closet at Riverside Airport, where we literally took down clothes from the maintenance staff, and we turned it into an office. We sold snacks in there, and believe it or not, we sold chips and cookies and different things. And that's how I paid my rent. And I paid for the guy who, we sold some pilot supplies too, but that's essentially how we were paying our rent. And we paid for our first employee, and our first employee only worked 6 hours a week. We were open like 10 to 2, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then me and my business partner would switch off on the weekends. I mean, so it was literally, we're doing this by the skin of our teeth. And luckily over time, I was able to build that up where we had the plane flying a lot. So I reached out to other people, and I didn't have to give up any of the company. Luckily, I just got personal loans from people who I've met through industries, and I would buy airplanes with it, and I would pay them off super fast. And that was always my goal. I could borrow money and pay them off super quick. And honestly, since I was doing it with friends, they weren't savvy enough to put like liens on the airplanes or anything like that. It's just kind of bootstrapping it, right? Like
Hmm.
you're connecting with people and you're marketing yourself out to others, and you obtain trust from people that way. So I did that, and that's how I did it. I never went to any banks because banks never want to give me any money because I was broke before. Of course, if you're rich, banks will give you money. If you're broke, banks don't give you money, which is really kind of a conundrum, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I did it. And then eventually I was like, wow, I feel like a fraud not being a flight instructor, even though I've got my instrument rating and stuff. So I was like, oh, I better go do this. So I
Yeah.
ended up getting it mostly so I could earn the respect from my flight instructors, because they would just walk all over me like, oh, Brandon, you don't know anything. And then I'll tell you this, after I had my CFI, the entire world flipped in the dynamic between my employees and myself. And I was finally looked up to like I should have been originally. But that's kind of hard when you're a non-CFI owner, unless you have maybe a chief instructor or something who manages those people. Otherwise, they're not going to respect you as the leader of the flight instructors.
Mm. Yeah, that's something I've seen. So there's if I were to put a finger on our data, this is very like a back the napkin. I mean, a lot of the owners I talk to, a lot of our flight school partners that work with Right Rudder Marketing, they are usually CFIs. It's a big percentage. I want to say at least 80% of the flight school owners are CFIs. But there is this I don't want to say there's another demographic or another percentage that are also like non-CFIs. They're pilots like me, you know. And I guess the best advice for them is to just go ahead and get your CFI. If you're going to be running a flight school, maybe that's the best way to do it in order to grow it, right? Or is that
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of what I'm hearing? I don't know.
I would say either get your CFI or hire an amazing chief instructor. And if you can't afford that chief instructor yet, because a really amazing chief instructor is probably 6 figures or maybe more than that,
Mm,
especially if you want them at the school all the time, like you are, then you need your CFI. You need to be able to command that respect. And honestly, until you get your CFI, you don't really know what your CFIs are going through. When you get a tough student or they get a tough student, you can't even coach them on how to solve their problem, which is difficult to deal with. I remember I would get terrible students, and I would ask for the terrible students because it made me a better flight instructor, and then I could coach my instructor.
mhm.
So I would just take on the tough stuff and make it work. But you did ask one question on how I built that, and it wasn't just asking people for money. Obviously, that's one aspect of growing a business, right? You also have to
Mhm.
sell a product.
Yeah.
And to be honest, this was prior to I believe your company being around, or I didn't know about you, probably before you were even around. How long
Yeah.
have you been here?
We've been around for about 3 years, but we didn't start taking off till like 2023, 2024, really.
So I
So
hired
it's
a
pretty new.
marketing
Yeah.
company 5 or 7 years ago. So it was before you guys.
Hmm.
That's why I didn't hear of you prior to that, obviously. And this guy, he was specializing in flight schools. and I can't even remember his name, but he was in Dubai or something, and he would go to all these different flight schools, like on the phone, and he would sell me on this idea of how to market to my students. And for me, it was Google Ads at the time, and I haven't had my schools in a few years, so I don't know. You're the expert on marketing, not me. But for me, it was Google Ads. So I turned on Google Ads, and I lowered my Yelp stuff personally. And with the Google Ads, it transformed my business. I could finally get to a number where I could say, as soon as I turned on this Google ad with the optimized keywords that this marketing guy did for me, and I sent them to a click funnel, which was my version of marketing back then, I was able to convert based on a certain dollar amount. I can get $10,000 through the door. And as long as I continued doing that and I continued optimizing, it worked out fantastic. So I could basically say, okay, I have too many planes available right now and not enough students. I can turn up my ads and I know I'll get more students or more leads, which correlate into more students. And that works really, really well for me. And if it wasn't for that guy, I probably wouldn't have got to the point where I got, to be honest. I think that hiring somebody who really knows what they're doing in marketing, especially in the pilot world, is exponentially amazing.
Yeah.
Transforms a
What do
business.
you? It is a formula. I mean, there's the website, there's the SEO, the ads, whether it's through Facebook, Meta, or through Google. We usually start with Google first, just because you think about this when people are searching for how to become a pilot, and you show them an ad, they're already searching for information, so they're already a much warmer lead compared to, let's say, Facebook or Meta or Instagram. You show them something like a video or a short, they're not actively looking for your product or service. So they're looking for fun cat videos, time wasters, and then you show up. So it gives you, it's good for retargeting. That's what we call it in the marketing industry. Like, they visit your website, they already know who you are, but like they didn't like pull the trigger, or they didn't like take off or whatever. But they still see you. It's no longer like, hey, I said no, then you disappear. It's like, hey, you're still on my Facebook feed for some reason, and then they come back a month later, say, hey, I keep seeing your ad. Let me start a conversation, with you. That's the power of getting all different aspects of marketing, not just one silver bullet, and getting them to work in tandem to actually get leads to come in. And once you do get leads, that should transform typically to more students. And we've seen that across the industry with all our flight schools as well. Now, there's a converse, or a kind of a question I have for you. Maybe it's a little thought provoking. So you do the marketing thing for a flight school, and what happens is they get too many leads, and now they have a wait list. Because now they're at full capacity. Their planes are flying 70 to 120 hours a month, which are good numbers, by the way. But they can't service them, and there's these people always inquiring. So we've had customers actually scale back, the marketing just because they couldn't do it. What advice do you have for flight school owners that just have too much demand for their schools, and how can they, I guess, optimize their operations? Whether it's acquiring new planes, more CFIs, scaling it. Some of the growing pains of scaling a business. What's some tips and tricks that you might have in your experience of running a flight school, and also working with flight schools all over the world with Stratus too?
You're right. It's a hard one. And it's only hard for one reason. Everybody's situation is very unique. And sometimes, personally, I like raising prices. And I know it sounds crazy, but just raise the prices and get rid of some people. You'll make more money. You'll have qualified leads, and you'll basically lower the demand, but you'll make more money. And sometimes that is the answer. If you buy another airplane, by the way, buying another airplane doesn't mean you're more profitable, doesn't mean you're going to be able to put 70 to 100 hours. I'll tell you this, if that engine goes out a little early, it used to be 25 or 30 grand. Now it's $50,000 for a motor and a prop overhaul. So, I mean, if you buy another airplane and something happens early on it, or even a radio goes out, and then you can't go buy that radio, you can't get it refurbished quick enough. These are all things that slow down your operation. They can take your airplane out for a week if you've got good people. Could take you down for months if you have bad ones. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. But how do you scale?
Students are going to hate us for this. Yeah, let's raise our flight school prices.
It's true, though. I mean, students aren't going to like it, and it's going to force them to go to other schools that probably don't have their stuff put together quite as well, because if they've got a wait list that long, they probably have got everything put together really, really well. And if a student wants to go to a quality flight school, they'll pay more. It's like, hey, do you want to go to Outback Steakhouse or do you want to go to Delmonico's type of thing? And I've been to Outback and I've been to Delmonico's, and I don't know. I think Delmonico's is even out of business now, which is kind of funny. Outback's still around, but if you go to Outback, their steak tastes like leather. It's not very good. It's cheap. It's $12 or $10. You go to a nice steakhouse, it's $50. The atmosphere is better, the service is better, the food is better, the quality is better. So you end up paying more. And you do
Mm-hmm.
the same thing when you go to a flight school. I mean, if you go and fly a raggedy old 1959 Cessna 172 early Alpha model, do you want to fly that, or do you want to go fly a 2023 glass panel with the G1000 and GTN 750 in it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are the questions. And I'll tell you this, the answer is probably somewhere in between if you're a student listening to this. I mean, I
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
fly a 1980s or 1990s airplane that has an upgraded panel
yeah.
and a decent looking interior than me going and spending $300 an hour on a brand new airplane.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if they're just starting out, I wouldn't be flying the Cirruses or the G1000s just yet. You can get away with a six pack or G5s, type panel. It's totally okay. And you don't have to. It doesn't have to even be like IFR and all that stuff ready if you're just starting in private. You don't need a GPS. You don't need a GPS technically. So yeah, those are some growing pains that we see with a lot of our flight schools because they're just seeing a lot of success. To be honest with you, which is good. It's a testament for the work that we do, but it's also like this. I don't want to say disheartening, but we want to support them in all the ways we can. So maybe that is the next advice: is raise the prices, and then when you're ready, expand the fleet, and then that way you can service the additional students that come through the door.
Yeah, and I will
That
say,
might be the next thing.
as people add airplanes and grow, there is a weird moment between, I would say, 5 planes and 10 planes where
Mm-hmm.
business starts getting really expensive to run. And sometimes you can even lose money at that size, if you're not smart about it, and you don't raise your rates, and you don't upgrade your equipment, you don't get ready for that investment. Sometimes it can go a little bit higher than that if you use a lot older fleet. So you really need to kind of be careful and be mindful and run the numbers. Really take a spreadsheet out and run the numbers. There's so many flight school owners out there that they run this like a mom and pop business. You need to run it like an enterprise. You need to know your
Mm-hmm.
data. There's actually a company that I just met the other day, and I'll email it to you, Tim, and maybe you can meet with them and recommend them. I don't have their name off the top of my head, but basically they optimize flight schools based on data.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really big on data. At Stratus, we use data. It's probably our biggest department that we have, next to maybe accounting and our school relations department. And data is used every single day. Me and my head of data talk literally 10 times a day. And I can tell you this, as a flight school owner, if you had more data, you can do a lot more with it. Um, you could optimize your fleet. You can optimize your scheduling. You can optimize a lot of things. And sometimes there's also hard things that you have to change while you're growing. And it's going from allowing people to pick their own schedules to you assigning them a schedule, a full-time schedule. And I'll tell you this, you will lose a ton of customers. So that also might be an answer for the people that have the wait list. If they're still allowing people to pick their time slots, that might be the problem. You might need to tell your students when they sign in or sign on with you, the only thing they can do is be full time, or they're only being mornings or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about data. So what's one of the things that we like to do as Right Rudder Marketing too? We call them KPIs. So in the manufacturing industry, we call it KPIs, which stands for key performance indicators. And I used to run 10,000 a minute items passing a conveyor belt. We'd have the Scantrons, whatever, that looks at the barcodes and all that stuff. And there'd be this dashboard on the factory floor with pieces per minute, cost per minute, labor hours, things like that. The management team would always look at this thing. What is some data that flight schools can use to optimize their businesses, in your opinion, from running, flight schools and Stratus Financial? What are some things? What data should we be looking at as flight school owners?
Yeah, you should look and see how much your flight instructors are not billing. There's a lot of flight instructors that don't bill for their time, legit time. There's also a lot of flight instructors that bill for time that they shouldn't be billing for too.
Mm-hmm.
Like there'll be a 2-hour time window and it'll be blocked out, and the flight instructor will be eating lunch while you're pre-flighting an airplane, and they charge you for 15 minutes of that. It's like, I don't know, 20, $30 or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's unacceptable. That irritates your customer. So I would look at indicators like those. I don't know how you can really quantify that as a KPI, besides just watching your business.
Yeah.
But some KPIs to look at are obviously how much your airplane's flying every month.
Hmm.
How much maintenance dollars are you spending actually per hour? A lot of people have these rates built, and I'll tell you what, a lot of flight schools start off building their rate models based on all the other flight schools in the area. And all they do is they look at all the flight schools in the area and they'll be like, okay, everybody's charging 125 or 150 or 220, whatever it might be for the types of aircraft. And then they go try to undercut them by $5 or whatever they do. And they think that's the right way to go about it. That's not really the right way to go about it. Go look at how much your fuel costs at your airport, how much the oil is costing you. Can you get some optimization on that? Can you go get discounts? Uh, and really dig into what an hour of that airplane generally costs. I mean, you can back into it. What's a 100-hour cost, right?
Hmm.
But also, what does that maintenance reserve look like? Do you even have a maintenance reserve? A lot of flight schools do not have maintenance reserves. They fly on the edge of their seats, essentially. Say there's like the third or fourth aviation pun. I love them to death in this industry. So,
I had a flight school owner, and he literally said he was one accident away from going bankrupt because like he didn't have any maintenance reserves or anything like that. So if there was someone did a prop strike or whatever it is, like the business was going to shut down, which I hope it doesn't, but at the same time, it kind of, in my perspective, is like, hey, now there's an issue, that you need to have reserves. Um, best way to do is start from zero. Start a little bit at a time. One of our webinars we're going to have in the future is talking about profit first. He's talking about financial education that I think a lot of business owners don't have. I didn't have it until I started the business, but I read a lot of books and seminars, and I talked to some coaches and mentors, and I go by what's called the profit first model. So we take money that comes in and we allocate that in different funds. So whether that's payroll, whether that's operation expense, software expense. I'm just talking about my own business, but for flight schools, that's how much you're going to allocate for your 100 hours. If you're looking to save for a new plane, start it small, put a couple dollars, per hour towards, this bucket that can eventually fund, a new acquisition. You don't have to always go out and borrow money. I don't know. That's kind of my advice, but
yeah, I
other
mean,
KPIs that we looked at was like annual revenue, number of leads coming in, cost per lead, number of new students per month. Those are some good data like points that I think flight schools can use to go at. Speaking about money, let's kind of transition to Stratus now. So Stratus is pretty big. I think you guys did a great job in the marketing aspect, by the way, as a marketing
thank
guy.
you.
What is Stratus, and so you sold the school, then you got into Stratus. How did that work?
By the way, I think Stratus's marketing team's 8 people now. It might be even 10. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wasn't even a big fan of marketing I mean, I've been a big fan of marketing to get customers, but not for brand awareness, and that's what our team's done really, really well. But as you've noted, yeah, we are the largest lender in the aviation space now. One of the other lenders left the space last year, and so we remain the biggest now. We work with so we're Stratus Financial. We like to pride ourselves being said we call ourselves for pilots by pilots. And it's because Anthony and me and Anthony's my co-founder, we founded this company, and we're both commercially rated pilots, and I happen to be a flight instructor and he happens to be a ground instructor. So we really know this industry, and he knew financing industry from owning law firms, right? So we started this company, and we grew it starting with my one flight school, grew it to 5 flight school partners in Southern California, and now we work with I think 305 flight school partners across 32 states that we lend in now, and we're growing like crazy. We're adding anywhere between 5 and 15 flight schools every single month. Our goal is to inject $120 million a year into flight schools, into their operations, into their students, and we do that by giving these students loans so they can become commercial pilots. I'll tell you this: the average person that goes to flight school costs $86,000 to go from zero to hero, or zero to
Hmm.
CFI, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if you look at, there's some statistics out there, and we have them. If anybody needs them, feel free and reach out to me on LinkedIn or via email, and I'll send them over to you. There are statistics that state over your lifetime you will make more money than a doctor by 20 to 25%. At the end of your career, if you really want to work super, super hard, you can make $1 million a year at the end of your career. I know pilots doing that. And you can make $250,000 to $300,000 a year and work like 5 days a month. I mean, or I know people that make $250,000 a year, and They go to recurrency and that's it. They don't even fly a line. It's unbelievable. They just fly reserve and they're such high captains. They don't have to ever do anything. So there's people that do that too. Now, are they going to be the first ones to get furloughed? Probably. But they're making a boat ton of money to become a pilot. So we look at the cost analysis, and I think it's worth it. I mean, 86 grand, even if rates aren't like a house rate because they're unsecured, it still makes sense to become a pilot. And even if you spend 100,000 on interest over 15 years, guess what? If you get this done in 12 months or 14 months, you're going to be making that income a lot sooner, right? If you wait 4 or 5 or 6 years and go to a university collegiate program or something like that, it's actually going to take you, you're actually going to lose $1 million in earning potential because you have to retire at 65, at least if you're an airline pilot. So let's just say it takes you 3 or 4 extra years. That's $250 a year on the low end, $1 million out of earning potential out of your pocket. I think $1 million is worth spending 100 grand in interest. And that's always been my perspective. But if you have a house and refi it and you can pay off your student loan or do something like that, do that instead, because the name of the game is spend the least amount of money possible to make the most amount of money. But there's a catch-22. You got to spend money to make money.
Yeah, you got to spend money to make money. I think you put it in a really good perspective as far as investment. And I think that's the thing with not just students, but business owners too, is like, how much can I invest and what's my return? And really, so it is a risk, whether it's with marketing, you want to invest, 50K to 100K on marketing. Do you know that you're going to get the return on it? Same thing with a student. I know if you get an 80K loan, are you going to be able to graduate? I guess some advice too is like, if they're going to do this whole zero to hero, do the airline thing, you want to make sure that's the thing you actually want to do. I mean, I would hate for someone to, take $100,000 loan and then midway through training, they realize that this is not the career that I want. This is not what I want to do. So I guess what are some things that you've seen in Stratus? Like, what are some student success rates maybe that you've seen? Like, how many? Like, I don't know if you know the exact numbers of how many people that you funded, but do you know those? I guess the approximate percentage of people that you funded to actually get to completion rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I do know that number. I know that exact number, by the way. So when you are working on becoming like a private pilot, it actually has an 85% attrition rate. And,
Right.
and generally, if somebody wants to become a pilot, 85% of people fail. I actually have data that I've traced for 3.5 or 4.5 years now that actually correlates with if you have funding, then you will become a commercial pilot 81% of the time. So it almost flips that number on its head. So if you are fully funded and it's been 6 months since you were funded, you have a high likelihood of becoming a commercial pilot. So that is the number, 81% versus negative 85, essentially. So
Yeah.
that just shows you if you've got the money, you're probably going to finish. But to the point that you were asking earlier on if what kind of correlates into somebody being successful if they really want to do this? Well, the first thing we even make people do at Stratus before they even get a loan with us, we make sure they can get a medical. You wouldn't believe how many people apply and didn't even realize they need a medical certificate. And that's also because their flight schools are not telling them, hey, if you don't get this medical certificate, you will never be able to become a commercial pilot, nor can you even become a pilot in some instances. Or it'll take a year or a year and a half for you to go through that medical process for you to get approved. And a lot of flight schools, they just want the money through the door. And they don't think, well, if they can't finish, they can just finish over a year. I know I said that before to my students when I was struggling and a new flight school owner. And yes, if they stuck through it, it was true. They would get their medical and they would get all the way through. But I will tell you that that it takes time and it takes dedication. And you also need to probably go start off and check on if you actually like this. Like you said, do you want to become a pilot? Maybe you should go all the way up to when you solo. I know a lot of students will quit after they solo because they're like, I got to be
That's a
about
weird phenomenon. So why would they quit after? I've seen this also too with like both like people that were in my cohort. Like this is almost 5-10 years ago. Like I did my ground school, it was a class of us, like 10 of us, and only probably out of those 10 of people, three actually took the written exam and continued training. Out of the 3 people that continued training, they all went solo. After 2 of the people that did solo, they just never finished after their solo. And I was like, you already got this far. You got your written exam done, you got your medical done, you're soloed. All you gotta do is just some check ride prep and you get it. But why is it that some students, there's some attrition that happens after solo? It's just like, oh, I did it, then I'm done. It's like, I don't know. It's like you got 80% done or 90% done. You just got to do the last 10% to get your certificate. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. But
There's one reason, and it's the reason that everything that doesn't make sense makes sense, and it's emotion. People are scared. They get fearful. They think they had kind of a mishap. They got lost for about 5 seconds on their first solo or their solo cross country. They had a hard landing the first time they soloed. All it is fear, and they haven't had an instructor that could coach them through that fear, or they haven't developed kind of their own psyche as a human to be able to deal with that fear, or maybe it's just as simple as it's not right for them. And I
yeah,
think that's the reason why so many people quit right after solo, because I don't know, it's a whole new world. I remember soloing my first time on my first solo cross country,
I
and
thought it was awesome. I was like, hey, I did it. There's no instructors. The plane's much lighter.
plane was lighter. I remember looking to my right and I said, "Oh blank, there's no one in the plane." When I did my first takeoff, and it was an interesting flight. But I also did this with no ForeFlight, and I had a
Yeah.
junk headset, and I did it with paper maps going to San Diego and back for my first solo cross country. And I remember how nerve-wracking that was if I didn't see all of my points. But luckily, I did that cross country one other time, and it ended up being fine. But I mean, people nowadays, if they're getting scared after their solo cross country and they've got ForeFlight and a moving map GPS and GTN 750 and a Garmin G1000 and their iPhone having a backup on ForeFlight posted over here and a map over here, if you're still getting nervous, you just overwhelmed yourself with too much technology. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. There's a over reliance on technology in a way, but it's also there's two. I think there's two ways to cut this cat here. You know, you have, in one sense, the technology is making us safer pilots because it's giving us better situational awareness. Another sense, it's like we're becoming complacent with the technology, and what do you call it? It's not a good fit. So, I mean, that's just how the industry's evolving over time. We'll see how new technology comes. Um, I guess we can take a small break here. We have some messages on the chat regarding Stratus, so we can, I guess, put this on here. Let's see what we got here.
yeah,
I remember a while ago I was talking to Gustavo actually about like different states have different requirements for financing, and then Stratus and other competitors were not able to finance in certain states. So this guest is from the Missouri, Illinois side. What's the status with Missouri and Illinois? Can we do funding for students in this location?
Yeah, so Illinois is a no. We actually, I'll tell you the background on that. We actually abandoned our application in Illinois. It's a very difficult state to get through with their licensing requirements, and there's a lot of other states that are very difficult also. But that one they require chicken or the egg, and basically, if you're not a well-established, ginormous company, they didn't want to work with you, and it was either that or I don't know, maybe there's corruption there. I'm not really even sure. uh, but, uh, but so we couldn't get through. We do everything above the book, and we couldn't get through.
Mm-hmm.
We probably could have done it if we pushed and pushed and pushed for another few months. But the economics in that state don't allow to charge. Don't quote me exactly, but I think it was like over 6% interest in our types of loans. And I'll tell you this: you can't even get a house for less than 6% interest, and that's secured by a collateral that's collateralized with a down payment. So obviously our cost of capital is more than 6%. So it didn't financially make any sense in the state of Illinois. For Missouri, we opened up on a test basis like 5 or 6 more states in the past 2 weeks. And maybe it hasn't even gone out. It might not be going out till Monday. Missouri might be on that list that is getting opened as a test basis for a new type of business model that we're running. So I put on there, if anybody was curious about a certain state, reach out to Gustavo. It's Gustavo at stratus.finance, and he can let you know about that state. He really he knows his stuff better than I do when it comes to which states that we lend in. I can tell you which states that are kind of our most popular that we lend in off the top of my head. And I can tell you which ones we didn't lend in about a month ago, and it was Illinois, Missouri, and Texas. But I know Texas has been reopened as of last week. That was our number 3 state before we closed that down due to a business model decision. And I'm really excited that it's reopened. I mean, I think about 20% of the U.S. flight schools are based in Texas. So I'm really happy that we get to help them again.
Yeah, Texas is huge. You just look at the Houston airspace or Dallas. There's a lot of flight schools there. So glad to get Texas up and running. I think Missouri was on that list of tests because we do have a flight school that we work with in Missouri that's also a Stratus partner. And they sent an announcement out saying that, hey, we're going to be changing, or they let my team know that we need to change some website edits to say that we're allowing, I think, Missouri to do financing. So don't quote me on this. I just see the stuff from my team. I think the same thing with Brandon. He sees stuff that is on his team. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the background. Both of us have, certain operations going, but I do believe Missouri's back on the books because we had taken that down for a while, and now they're back up. So I guess that's a new struggle for finance companies. So it's not really nationwide; it's per state that you have to get, I guess, a verification or like you get, what do you call it? I guess appeals or something like that in order to do it for each state, or how does that work?
Yeah. So the thing is, if you are a bank, you work under a national bank charter, and basically that allows you to lend in any state or territory in the U.S. For you to lend outside of the U.S., it's not even possible to do that if you're a national bank without international ties. When you are a finance company, it's even more micro. You have to get state licensed, and sometimes you need 2 to 3 or 4 different licenses to be state specific, depending on what type of loan. So certain states require student loan licenses. Certain ones require consumer finance licenses. So we have to get all of those. But then there's also some states that are fantastic and they don't require any license, as long as you stay under certain usury caps or within certain terms and conditions. And for example, like Florida, as long as we do loans over $25,000 and we have a specific type of license and we pay their tax on every loan, things like that, we can go in there with low regulation. But states like California, which we started out in, you have to have bonds, you have to have deposits, you have to show minimum net worth, you have to show many things that people don't even think about. So we sometimes have to do that on every single state. So imagine every state having to spend $50,000 to $100,000 on. I mean, there's 50 of them. That's $5 million over time to be able to do that. It's not small money, even though everyone thinks if you own a finance company, money's unlimited. I'll tell you this. Money's not even unlimited for banks. There are limits.
Yeah. I guess we can pivot here. So we were talking about Stratus and kind of the, I guess, operations of Stratus. What's kind of your vision and mission for Stratus? So you've been working on it for a bit. You're at 300 schools. Where are you trying to take this in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I want us to be the premier lender in this space, which I believe we already are. And I want to help more students than anybody else ever has in our industry. My goal is to do, like I said, at least $120 million a year in new student loans. And I want them to be good, qualified people that we can really help change the trajectory of their life. So that's my main goal. I keep on bringing up the fact that we're for pilots by pilots, and it really means a lot to me because I know how much aviation's done for me. So that's kind of where we're going with that. Outside of that, we also have something new that we're launching in May, and it's for flight school owners primarily, but we've opened it up to flight instructors and also students as well, and it's called Aero Summit, and you can go to stratus.finance. And any of your listeners or clients, this is the premier place to go. We're going to be doing things a lot different than some of our I'm not going to call them competitors, but other people who have done conferences in this space. We're new, we're hip. You've seen our marketing. We know how to get people. stratus.finance.com. Thanks so much for putting it on the screen.
Typed it in for you there.
I love it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really going to be our premier event. We're going to network people together. We're going to connect the people who you want to meet. For example, I just had a conversation with the president of Lightspeed Headsets yesterday, and he's a fantastic guy. I've been using Lightspeed headsets personally for a decade now, and I'm a big fan. And we're going to be doing some collaborations, hopefully coming soon. Nothing's concrete yet, but I know they're going to be there at Aero Summit. We've also have aircraft manufacturers. We have a demo day. We're even trying to get a VTOL there. I mean, we've got food trucks coming even for our demo day. I mean, we've got a bus that I've rented that goes back and forth between the Wynn and North Las Vegas Airport. It's not going to be a small event. It's going to be something you definitely want to go in. Who doesn't like going to Las Vegas too? So plus, if you've ever been to Fasana and you went to the Stratus party, you know what you're missing if you've missed going there, because we throw one heck of heck of a party and a networking event with amazing food, amazing conversation, amazing people, all in our industry, which you can all get value from. So I don't know. I could probably go on for
When is this thing on May? I gotta just do some self promotion here. When is it, and where is it, and why should people attend? How about that?
Well, I think I just told everybody why they should attend, but it's at the Wynn in Las Vegas. I believe it's May 21st through 23rd. Double check that for me. I'm almost positive it's May 21st through 23rd.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a great event for all the reasons I just described before. And there's going to be a bunch of panel speakers. I believe you might even be speaking. I know you've got a booth there.
Yep.
So
we'll be there. We'll be talking about flight school marketing, the flight school marketing system, how to grow your school, get more leads, get more students. We'll do our thing as well there too. So that's a really great, so what spurred you to even do this event, out of curiosity? Like, so obviously there's some other events that happen in the industry every year. That's where we met a couple years ago. What spurred you to start Aero Summit?
To be honest with you, I didn't want to. I had no inclination to putting on a conference. I've done large events before, and I can throw great small events with a couple hundred people or something. But we wanted to make something big, and it wasn't my idea. It was Anthony's idea, my co-founder, and he comes from the lending world, and he created a conference in the lending world that became the #1 conference in the private lending world. And now they have, I think, 1,200 attendees. They started off with a couple hundred, and they've built it up to 1,200 over the years, which is a very large conference for an industry-specific conference. And I'll tell you this, he bought me in on it because he said, "Hey, we can bring people together, and we can give value to people." And my whole thing with Stratus is giving value to people. I don't want people to just see us as a number or see us as a venue. I want to bring value to people. For example, not just on the Stratus Aero Summit thing, but if you're a customer of ours and your school allows it, we actually pay for Gold Seal Ground School and Shepherd Air for your students, complimentary. And I say that's a supplemental ground school. It shouldn't take away from what your ground school is. But I want to give these students every single tool that they need to complete their training. We also offer words of encouragement via email, and we send handwritten cards to every one of our borrowers on their birthday and every time they obtain a new pilot certificate or license. So there's something about giving value to people that really resonates for me. And with Stratus Aero Summit, we were able to give a ton of value to our customers and also future customers.
It's really that's the first time I'm hearing this. So like you're saying that you give cards away during their birthdays. You you provide free ground school to the people. That's unheard. I didn't know that you guys did that. So that's a very commendable thing that Stratus Financial does. I do think that it kind of aligns with the mission and vision of what you're saying is it's for pilots by pilots. It's really you're trying to provide a service. You're trying to give an opportunity to the next generation of aviators, and I think that's a really great thing to do. So. Hats off to you, Brandon. I don't know why you started it, but it's an awesome thing to do, and I'm really happy for you there. So, besides this too, you also have your own podcast too, right? So you have the Aviation Mentors podcast that you started. Tell us a little bit about what you guys talk about on that podcast and why you started it. And I'll leave it at that.
So Aviation Mentors podcast is available on everywhere that a podcast is available, including YouTube now. We started our season 2 middle of last year, which has video now. But we did it all audio for a very long time, and that was fantastic. And then the world changes, and it doesn't want to listen to audio clips; it wants to watch video clips. Hence why we got 1.4 million on a views on a random clip about us arguing about how much airplane prices cost for the airlines. I don't know, it was dumb, but we started it to help pilots. I mean, I always thought that I wanted to create a podcast, and I remember listening to one of my friend's podcasts, and he actually had me on as a guest host a couple times back in the day. His name's Mike Harris. He's a great guy. He had the Why We Fly podcast. He also now he went from being in the auto industry to now owning flight schools in Tennessee now, which is fantastic. I don't know if you work with Mike, but he's a great guy. But I always felt like I wanted to be on podcast, and I thought that if I have a voice that means something to somebody, maybe it can help. And originally I didn't think I could do it. And then finally I got all my flight certificates, and I bought and sold a lot of airplanes, and I had a lot of knowledge in the industry, and I sold my flight school and all those types of things. So I said, you know what, I think it's time to start this podcast and try to give people back some knowledge that I learned along the way. And I feel like if I give, I will always receive. So the more I give people, the more I'm going to receive. And I try to live my life like that. So that's the reason why I started the podcast. Anybody listening to it, please don't start on the first, like, I don't know, 20 episodes. I think we have 160 out now. The first couple are like cringy because they're like scripted reading. It was horrible. But if you check them out as of lately, they're, I don't know. I guess they're pretty good, especially if you like banter between me and my co-host Carson. We always laugh and joke around quite a bit.
It takes a bit. I mean, like when I was doing these podcasts and these webinars, like I didn't really know how to act. I think my first time I made the website, I also put a video up there, and I had a script, and I had written the script like ahead of time, but I'd rehearse it, and then I'd make like 10 takes just to get the script right. And it's really, it evolves over time, and I think that's something that my advice for flight school owners too is, the the world is changing as far as the marketing, right? I think a big part of marketing is actually video. So get your face out there, go on the camera. You don't have to start a podcast, but talk about your school, talk about your programs. Be able to put yourself out there, because if you're not and someone else is, then you're not going to be as competitive, right? That's my advice. Maybe for you, Brandon, do you have any advice for some of the flight school owners and students out there? We are kind of wrapping up here in the last couple minutes, so yeah. Do you have any advice for flight school owners, how to grow their business? Some last golden nuggets you can share to the world here?
I'm going to start off with the flight school students first. First thing is, don't give up. It's been your dream for a long time. I get even goosebumps thinking about that. Just continue doing what you're doing. Listen to your flight instructor. If it doesn't feel right with that instructor, go pick a brand new one. If it doesn't feel right with the flight school, go pick a new one. If it doesn't feel right with the flight school owner, go find a new one. Flight school owners won't like that, but I mean, you got to treat your people right, and for them to have value, because you're charging a very expensive product for them, and they don't even know what the hardships behind the scenes like we do. So I would say for the flight school owners, also keep your head down. Get those KPIs that Tim was talking about. Really know your numbers. I mean, I see it on Shark Tank every night when I'm watching it before I go to bed, and they're always like, "You better know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you're going to be out of business, right?" So that's it. And I see that Ari's on here, which is pretty cool. And
Ari from what's a Flight Schools for Sale, right?
He's the one.
Ari, you want to join in the last 5 minutes here? ask Brandon a question.
But yeah, Ari sold my school for me. So
let's see if he's able to do it. There's a button that you have to click to like request it. Then I think you can get in here. But anyway, I don't see it. I don't see it right now, but maybe he left. I don't know.
Yeah, no problem.
What happened to him? So, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just don't give up. I think that also applies to both business owners too, not just the students. Like it's a challenge. I think hearing your story, living, what do you call it? Start making the operations from a closet, and then bringing it to reality, and then eventually expanding to 14 planes. That's it's insane. And even my story too. I was working in the factory for a while, and then I finally was able to build the business up gradually over time, where I went full time, and now we're just doing full force. So don't give up is I think both me and Brandon's kind of golden nugget here. We're gonna get a guest call here. In our last 5 minutes, we have 5 minutes left to go in the podcast. Ari is a business consultant. He's also a previous flight school owner. He's been on the podcast before. What's going on, Ari?
Hi, guys. Hi, Tim. Great job. Brandon, how are you, miss?
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Yeah, probably see you in Vegas there. Quickly, I know we don't have time much. Ari Pravala, Flight Schools for Sale, International Aviation. I'm an aviation flight school broker and consultant. Brandon, quickly, do you finance private pilots only? Or it has?
No, we actually do not finance private pilots anymore. We used to, and now we've kind of shied away from that. We finance commercial programs. So if they want to go from 0 to commercial, or 0 to CFI, or actually, I mean, it doesn't even have to be 0. They can be from anywhere. As long as they're going commercial or higher, we can finance them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, the reason I asked, when I was a flight school owner years ago, it was another company. I'm not sure if they're still around. but I was able to pay their interests. So I actually advertised, become a private pilot, $179 a month, 0% interest. So pretty much I was being um, paid at 90% and I pay 10% interest. So just as a marketing tool for schools, is that possible with your company where the school could pitch in to pay their interest rate?
Um, I don't know. That would be a legal question. I'd have to talk with my legal team on how they would have to structure that. I know that we're unable to take like just like having a school pay discount points like a mortgage originator would do or something like that, which is similar to what you're talking about. I would have to talk to a legal team to see if that's even possible. But I mean, if they gave them like a flight credit and the student paid us, that's possible.
Yeah, it did work.
But that's like out of the box thinking, and that would be a crazy marketing effort that between me, Tim, and Ari could probably talk through. And I have to get way too many attorneys involved all the time because of regulations. But I'm happy to explore crazy ideas. It's always fun to me.
It was crazy. I actually called the financing company, and it worked well for private pilots because they were financing 10 to 15,000 mostly. So I threw an advertisement out there, 0% interest rate. 250 down, 179 a month, and I've got quite a bit of students. So just a thought. That's it. I won't hold you up more. Thanks, Tim, for having me. And see you.
It's a surprise visit from Ari. Thanks, Ari. See you around.
Okay, guys.
I guess we are in the last couple minutes here. Let's do some call to actions here. So, Brandon, do you want to talk about what visitors on the podcast are typically flight school owners, business owners, B2B businesses as well. What you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of do some shameless plug, please reach out to me and connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to talk with you on LinkedIn. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I used to give out my email until I would get about 10,000 spam emails, so I give that out to special people. If you really want it, just reach out to Tim, and he'll hand it to you, I'm sure. Because I just don't leave it on these recordings anymore. But find me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. Just look Brandon Martini. Last name spelled just like the drink. It's not hard. And I think there's only one or two of us on there. So check me out there. If you want to reach out to me for Aviation Mentors, it is Brandon@aviationmentors.com. I don't check that email. My producer does, so he can screen it if need be. But if you'd like to be on our podcast, then please check us out. Like I said, the Aviation Mentors podcast is on every single version of where podcasts are downloaded, including Apple and Spotify and YouTube. So love to see you there. And then, of course, we've got that Aero Summit I talked to you about earlier. And then Stratus Financial is really the key to my business. And you can go to www.stratus.finance. There's no .com, none of that, just stratus.finance. And if you'd like to become a school partner of ours, please reach out. Gustavo can help you there, and we can get you going. We do have some minimum requirements. You need to have at least 3 aircraft. At least one of those needs to be a TAA or complex aircraft. And we do require your students to be properly utilizing a syllabus with your instructors. If you don't have those requirements, we can work with you to get those and then eventually finance your students, but those are kind of our hard minimums. And then we do ask you some other questions to make sure you're a viable school. We obviously want to finance students that are going to get through your program. And yeah, that's kind of it for me.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon, for being on our podcast. This is Tim with Right Rudder Marketing. You can check us out at rightruddermarketing.com. We help flight schools all over the country grow and scale, enroll more pilots, get more student pilots in your flight school. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, reach out to me directly. You can give me a call. It's 314-804-1200. So again, we want to say thank you for Brandon and Stratus Finance for being on our podcast. We'll see you at the next episode. See you guys around.
Thanks again, guys. Take care, Tim.
Yeah.